Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to explore a fascinating chapter in Philippine history. We'll be talking about the site of the first Catholic Mass in the Philippines, celebrated on March 31, 1521. This moment is one of the most debated topics among historians. We'll look at primary sources, especially Antonio Pigafetta's first-hand account, to help us understand this pivotal event. So, let's dive into this intriguing story and uncover the details together. Let's delve into how critical analysis of primary documents and ongoing scholarly discourse help us develop a more nuanced understanding of Philippine history. By examining these sources carefully, historians can piece together events more accurately and challenge previous assumptions. For example, the National Historical Institute, or NHI, has concluded that the first Mass was celebrated in Limasawa, southern Leyte. Their conclusion is based on extensive research, thorough analysis of historical records, and a careful review of accounts from that time. This highlights how rigorous scholarship informs our comprehension of historical events. However, it's important to recognize that history isn't always clear-cut. Some historians argue that Masao in Butuan City might actually be the real location of this first Mass. They present various historical accounts and evidence to support their claim, suggesting that the debate is ongoing. This ongoing discussion, the Great Debate, reminds us that history is dynamic. Different interpretations and new findings can challenge established narratives, encouraging us to think critically. All of this ties back to our overall theme. Understanding Philippine history requires a thoughtful examination of sources and an openness to different perspectives. It's through this process that we deepen our appreciation of our past. To shed light on this debate, historians often turn to Antonio Pigafetta, who was actually a member of Ferdinand Magellan's expedition. His book, called First Voyage Around the World, offers us first-hand observations about the journey. It's especially valuable because it includes detailed accounts of what happened in the Philippines. If you look at pages 23 to 32, you'll find some of the most important descriptions of those events. Pigafetta's accounts help us understand not just the voyage itself, but also the broader implications of European exploration during this period. His perspective is a crucial primary source that connects directly to our overall theme of exploration and cultural encounters. It really brings to life the experiences of those early explorers and helps us piece together the story from their point of view. So, here we see that the Captain General made a strategic decision to land on an uninhabited island, specifically to the right, for safety reasons. We needed a secure place to rest, find fresh water, and recover from the long journey. 2 tents were set up to shelter the sick members of the crew, and importantly, a sow was killed to provide food for everyone. Then, moving to the key moment of our arrival at Samar, it was dawn on Saturday, March 16th, 1521, when we first sighted the land from a distance of about 300 leagues away from the Ladroni Islands. This marks a significant point in our expedition, as it was the first time we confirmed the presence of land after navigating such a vast stretch of ocean. This encounter with Samar not only signified our physical arrival, but also opened up new possibilities for exploration, trade, and understanding the region. It's a pivotal moment that connects to our broader theme of discovery and the challenges faced during this voyage. So, within just 4 days of arriving, we saw an incredible exchange of resources. Rice, coconuts, and a variety of other foods were shared, showing how quickly relationships could develop through mutual exchange. There was also a clear promise made, likely regarding future cooperation or trade, highlighting the importance of trust from the very beginning. On their side, they brought gifts like fish, palm wine, bananas, and more coconuts, which were probably offerings to establish goodwill. In return, we received gifts such as red caps, mirrors, combs, bells, ivory, and baucasine. These items reveal what they valued and what they considered meaningful gifts. Then, on a specific day, Monday afternoon, a boat approached us with 9 men. Their chief immediately went to the Captain General, showing obvious signs of joy, which suggests a positive initial impression and perhaps a desire for friendly relations. 5 other men, dressed in ornate attire, stayed behind, while others went to fetch their fishing companions. This first contact on March 18, 1521, marked a significant moment in our encounter, an opening of communication and the beginning of what would become a complex relationship. This slide really underscores how important initial exchanges and gestures are. They set the tone for future interactions and help build trust from the very start. Pigafetta was truly amazed by just how versatile the coconut palm is. He observed that its sap can be fermented into wine, providing a local beverage option. The flesh of the coconut can be eaten as bread, offering a nutritious and filling food source. The water inside the coconut is refreshing and nourishing, keeping people hydrated and healthy. What's really striking is that a family of 10 could be supported by just 2 coconut trees for an entire century. This highlights how incredibly resource-rich and sustainable the coconut palm is. Just as we rely on bread, wine, oil, and vinegar in our own diets, those people depend on their coconut trees for so many essential needs. It's a perfect example of how a single plant can serve as a vital cornerstone of daily life, tying into our broader theme of how indigenous resources sustain communities. Let's explore some fascinating uses of the coconut palm. First, we have the milk, which is quite intriguing. It's made by scraping flesh, mixing it with coconut water, and then straining it through cloth. The result is a liquid that closely resembles goat's milk. Quite remarkable, isn't it? Next, we look at oil and vinegar. The flesh can be putrefied and boiled down into a butter-like oil, which can be used for cooking. The water left over from this process can also be allowed to ferment and dry in the sun, creating vinegar that resembles white wine. This shows how resourceful people are with every part of the coconut. Moving on to food, the white marrowy flesh can be eaten fresh alongside meat and fish, offering a taste that's similar to almonds. Interestingly, it can also be dried and ground into bread, making it a versatile food source. Lastly, we have palm wine, which is collected from the heart of the palm. It's a sweet, slightly tart liquor gathered in bamboo canes both morning and evening. This tradition highlights how the coconut palm provides not just sustenance, but also cultural significance. Overall, the coconut palm is truly a multifunctional resource, supporting nutrition, beverage, and even culinary traditions. Pigafetta noted that these people became very familiar with us, and they told us many things, their names and the names of some of the islands visible from that spot. This particular island was called Humunu by the locals, which we now know as Hamonhen. Interestingly, the natives referred to their own island as Xioluan. This slide highlights the island's identity, including some of the first signs of gold found in the district, which suggests its potential value. Large quantities of white coral were also discovered, indicating the richness of the surrounding waters. Hamonhen is situated at about 10 degrees latitude and 161 degrees from the line of demarcation, placing it in a strategic location. The island was named part of the archipelago of San Lazaro, a name given when it was discovered on the Sunday of St. Lazarus. The expedition anchored at an island they called Aquata degli Buoni Segnali, meaning the watering place of good signs, named for its 2 springs with the clearest water. Overall, this island played an important role in our early explorations, offering signs of wealth like gold and fresh water, and serving as a key point in our navigation and discovery journey. Every day, the captain went ashore to visit the sick, showing his care and concern by offering them coconut water from his own hand each morning. This personal touch helped build trust and rapport with the local people. Then, on Friday, March 22nd, the men returned as they had promised, arriving in 2 boats. They brought with them coconuts, sweet oranges, palm wine, and even a cock, which was a clear sign that there were fowls in the district. The leader of these men was an old, tattooed man wearing 2 gold earrings, which likely signified his status. Other men wore gold armlets and kerchiefs, indicating their own social standing or cultural practices. This return visit was significant because it showed ongoing communication and the exchange of gifts, which were important for establishing relationships and understanding local customs. It also highlights the importance of observing and respecting local leaders and traditions as part of our broader exploration efforts. On this slide, we're exploring the fascinating appearance and adornments of this community. You'll notice they crafted weapons like daggers, knives, and spears, often decorated with gold, which highlights their skill and artistry. They also used large shields, javelins, and fishing nets, indicating a versatile and resourceful society. Their jewelry is equally impressive: gold earrings, some large enough to pass an arm through, showing their mastery of goldsmithing and their love of ornamentation. Moving to clothing, they made cloth from tree bark for their privacy, but some chiefs wore more elaborate garments, cotton cloth embroidered with silk, signifying status. Women typically wore tree bark skirts from the waist down, which was both functional and traditional. When it comes to appearance, these people had dark, broad, and sturdy features. They painted and tattooed their bodies, and used coconut and beniseed oils to protect against the sun and wind. Their hair was very black, falling all the way to their waist, completing their striking look. All of these details give us a vivid picture of their identity, how they expressed status, cultural identity, and resilience through their clothing, adornments, and physical appearance. On Holy Monday, while we were fishing from the side of the ship, I unfortunately slipped on the rain-slicked yard and fell into the sea without anyone noticing. It was a frightening moment, but I managed to hold on to a dangling mainsail rope to stay afloat. I remember crying out for help until a small boat came to rescue me. When I was nearly under the water, my left hand happened to catch hold of the clew garnet of the mainsail, which was hanging in the water. I truly believed that my survival was not merely due to my own merits, but rather through the mercy of that divine source of charity, the Virgin Mary. This incident highlights the constant danger we faced and the importance of faith and divine intervention in our journey. It's a reminder that even in moments of peril, trust and prayer can be our salvation. On Thursday morning, we spotted a fire on a nearby island, which immediately caught our attention. In response, we anchored our ship close to the coast to investigate. Soon after, a small native boat called a baloto, or baroto, with 8 men aboard, approached our flagship. What's interesting here is that our Captain General's slave, who was a native of Sumatra, was able to communicate with them. He spoke to the locals, and remarkably, we were immediately understood. This moment highlights how local knowledge and communication played a crucial role in our expedition. It also shows how interactions with native peoples could be both spontaneous and meaningful, helping us understand more about the region. Overall, this encounter underscores the importance of establishing contact and communication as we continue our voyage on March 28, 1521. In those districts, the kings knew more languages than other people, which was quite significant because it shows a higher level of communication and cultural exchange. This linguistic ability probably helped them engage more effectively with outsiders, including traders and explorers. Now, let's talk about the presents given to the king's men who boarded the ship. They offered gifts, which is a common way to establish goodwill and respect in these encounters. Among these gifts were a large bar of gold and a basket full of ginger. Interestingly, the Captain General graciously declined these offerings, perhaps to maintain neutrality or because he didn't want to seem overly eager. Next, there was the king's generous offer of 2 large boats called balanghai, which arrived full of men. The king himself sat in the larger one, comfortably under an awning made of mats. This shows a display of hospitality and respect. Through a Sumatran interpreter, communication was established, which was crucial for understanding each other's intentions and building trust. So this meeting in the king's balanghai was a key moment, an example of diplomacy, language skills, and cultural exchange, all central themes in our overall presentation about early contact and interactions in this region. In this slide, we see an interesting moment of cultural exchange and diplomacy. The Captain General communicates through a slave that he wishes to establish a close, almost brotherly relationship, what they call kasi-kasi, which signifies a deep bond, similar to brotherhood. The king responds positively, expressing that he also desires to enter into similar relations, indicating mutual respect and a desire for alliance. Following this exchange, the king arrives with a small entourage, 6 or 8 men, and they share a warm embrace with the captain general. This gesture highlights the importance of personal relationships in diplomatic interactions. They also exchange gifts. The king brings 3 porcelain jars of raw rice, 2 large Dorado fish, and other items, symbolizing generosity and the importance of sharing resources. In return, the captain gives the king a richly decorated garment in red and yellow, styled like Turkish attire, along with a fine red cap. These gifts serve as tokens of friendship and respect, strengthening the alliance. Finally, we see the moment where the king boards the flagship, which underscores the significance of this event, highlighting the trust and formal ties being established. And notably, this all takes place on Holy Friday, a day that might carry additional spiritual or cultural significance. Overall, this slide captures a vivid snapshot of diplomatic customs, gift exchanges, and the forging of alliances across different cultures during this period. Let's take a moment to look at how the captain demonstrated the incredible strength and discipline of his forces. He declared that one of his armed men was worth 100 of the enemy's men, which really highlights the confidence in their military power. To back this up, he showed cuirasses, swords, and bucklers. These are the armor and weapons that made his soldiers so formidable. Then, he conducted a full military review, showcasing the readiness and strength of his 200 armed men per ship. What's truly striking is how he demonstrated this power visually. The captain general had a fully armored man stand before 3 men armed with only swords and daggers. These 3 men struck him all over the body, left, right, front, back, and yet the armored man remained standing, unscathed. This display left the king nearly speechless, emphasizing just how formidable their military might was. This slide really highlights the impressive display of Spanish military power, which was a key theme of this presentation, showing not just numbers, but the quality, discipline, and technological edge of their forces. It really underscores how their strength was both a matter of pride and a strategic advantage. As the feast begins, a plate of pork and a large jar of wine are brought out. You can imagine the scene. Each time someone takes a mouthful of food, they also take a sip of wine. The king's cup, however, remains covered, only shared between the king himself and Pigafetta. Notice how they raise their hands to the sky before each drink. This gesture likely had a cultural or ceremonial significance, emphasizing reverence or gratitude. Moving on, the king lifts his hands to the sky and then turns toward Pigafetta, signaling a moment of importance. They are then led under a bamboo covering to a large balanghay, about 80 palm lengths long, surrounded by men armed with swords, daggers, spears, and bucklers. This scene highlights both the hospitality and the ceremonial importance of the event, as well as the respect and caution with which the local leaders engage. This part of the story emphasizes the significance of the feast and the ceremonial welcome, illustrating the rich cultural practices and the careful diplomacy between the explorers and the islanders. It's a vivid glimpse into how they honored their guests and celebrated their traditions. Tonight, I want to take you inside a fascinating scene, an evening at the king's palace. Imagine being served a simple yet rich meal, roast fish, freshly gathered ginger, and wine. These are not just foods, but symbols of hospitality and local abundance. As we observe, the king's eldest son, the prince, joins the gathering, highlighting the importance of family and social bonds in this culture. Now, an interesting detail is how Pigafetta's companion becomes intoxicated. This shows us how new experiences, like tasting local wine, can lead to unexpected moments. After this lively meal, everyone retires to sleep on bamboo mats with pillows made of leaves, simple yet comfortable, emphasizing a close connection to nature. The palace itself is quite remarkable. Built like a hayloft, it's thatched with fig and palm leaves raised high on wooden posts. This design isn't just aesthetic, it's practical, providing safety and ventilation. Access is only by ladder, which adds a layer of privacy and security. Pigafetta and his companion sit on these bamboo mats, legs crossed in a way that's familiar to us, like tailors at work, showing a relaxed, informal atmosphere despite the grandeur of the setting. Overall, this scene gives us a vivid picture of royal life, simple, close to nature, and rooted in tradition, yet with social customs that make it uniquely compelling. It's a perfect example of how local culture manifests in everyday moments, even within the grandeur of a palace. This moment really marks one of the earliest times a European documented a Philippine language, which makes it such a priceless contribution to our linguistic and cultural history. What's fascinating here is that Pigafetta actually recorded that he wrote down many words and names in the local language. And he described how, when the king and others saw him writing and heard him speak their words, they were all astonished. This highlights not only the curiosity and openness of the local people, but also how significant this act was in terms of cultural exchange and understanding. It's a powerful reminder of how early interactions like these helped preserve and share Philippine languages, contributing to the richness of our history. This moment really underscores the importance of documenting indigenous languages and how those early efforts laid the groundwork for our appreciation of linguistic diversity today. The island was called Butuan and Calagan, and it was known for its rich history and powerful leaders. The first king was Raya Kalambu, followed by Raya Sayayui. These kings were quite remarkable, especially in how they displayed their wealth and status. For example, the king wore 2 large golden earrings and had a silk covering on his head, which signified his high rank and wealth. It's fascinating to see how jewelry played such a big role. These earrings were not just accessories, but symbols of power. Speaking of wealth, the king also had 3 spots of gold on each of his teeth, making it look as if they were bound with gold. This was a clear sign of prosperity and status, a way to showcase his riches even in his appearance. Gold was abundant on the island, with pieces the size of walnuts and eggs found by sifting through the earth. Everything the king used, from his dishes to his ornaments, was made of gold. This highlights how wealthy and resource-rich the island was, especially during that time. Overall, this slide really emphasizes the wealth and grandeur of the king's island, illustrating how gold and precious adornments were central to their culture and identity. It helps us understand the extent of their riches and how they displayed their power through luxurious items. As I describe the scene, notice the details of what he carried at his side. There was a dagger with a long, all-gold hilt, truly a striking piece, and it was sheathed in a carved wood scabbard. This wasn't just a weapon, it was a symbol of status and craftsmanship. He was also perfumed with storax and benzoin, which gave him a distinctive, rich scent that was both tawny and painted all over, indicating a sense of elegance and importance. Pigafetta, the chronicler, highlights how striking the king was, describing him as the finest-looking man that we saw among those people. His appearance really stood out. His hair was a deep black, hanging down to his shoulders, adding to his commanding presence. He wore a silk head covering, which perhaps signified his rank or cultural identity. Additionally, he sported 2 large golden earrings, and his clothing was quite elaborate, cotton cloth embroidered with silk from his waist down to his knees. This description of Raya Kalambu isn't just about his appearance. It reflects his elevated status and the richness of his culture. These details help us understand the importance of appearance, adornment, and symbolism in establishing authority and identity within his society. All of these elements connect to the broader theme of cultural exchange and the way leadership was expressed visually and through material possessions. On Easter Sunday morning, March 31st, 1521, a significant moment took place. 6 cannon pieces were discharged as a gesture of peace before reaching the shore, symbolizing goodwill and the peaceful intentions of the expedition. This salute of peace was a clear signal to the local inhabitants that the visitors came in friendship. Shortly after, about 50 men landed. They weren't wearing body armor, but they carried other arms and dressed in their finest clothes, showing respect and seriousness about the occasion. Their appearance was both a sign of their readiness and their desire to make a positive impression. To ensure the proper consecration of the site, a priest and some men were sent ashore. They were there to consecrate the land, a key spiritual act, and to prepare for the upcoming Mass. Interestingly, the king was informed that their mission was for Mass, not for a meal, highlighting the religious importance of the event. Earlier that morning, the Captain General had sent the priest along with some men to prepare the place where the Mass would be held. An interpreter accompanied them to communicate with the local king. In a gesture of goodwill and respect, the king responded by sending 2 slaughtered swine as an offering, which was a customary sign of hospitality and reverence. This moment marked a significant step in establishing peaceful relations and laying the groundwork for the spiritual and cultural exchange that was to follow. It underscores the emphasis on religion, respect, and diplomacy during this historic encounter. Before the Mass began, the captain took a moment to sprinkle musk water over the entire bodies of both kings. This was a significant ritual, symbolizing respect and perhaps seeking protection or blessing. After that, the 2 kings moved forward to kiss the cross, an act that demonstrated their reverence and allegiance. When the body of Christ was elevated, all the ships fired their artillery at once. This was a powerful and coordinated display, with the signal coming from shore using muskets, creating a dramatic and unified moment of celebration. Following these ceremonies, the 2 kings embraced the Captain General, symbolizing unity and loyalty. They then placed him between them, highlighting his importance in this event. We then proceeded in a marching order to the designated place for the Mass, which was not far from the shore. This sequence shows the ceremonial significance and the orderly procession that marked this historic moment. Overall, these rituals and actions set the tone for the solemnity and grandeur of the first Mass celebrated, blending religious devotion with regal ceremony and naval spectacle. After the Mass concluded, some of the Spanish men took communion, which was a significant moment of spiritual connection and devotion. During this part of the ceremony, all the ships fired their artillery simultaneously at the elevation of the host. This created a thunderous celebration, symbolizing the importance and reverence of the moment. The artillery salute was a grand gesture, emphasizing the solemnity and joy of the occasion. Meanwhile, the kings remained on their knees, worshipping with clasped hands as the body of our Lord was elevated. This act showed their humility and deep reverence for the sacred moment. Both kings then went forward to kiss the cross, just as the Spaniards did, although they did not make any offerings. This act of kissing the cross was a sign of respect and devotion, aligning the kings with the rituals of the Spaniards. Overall, these actions, taking communion, the artillery salute, worshipping during the elevation, and kissing the cross, highlight the deep religious significance of the ceremony and the shared expressions of faith among all present. It ties into our overall theme of understanding the cultural and spiritual exchanges during this historic event. Now, the captain made a bold declaration. If any of their men were captured, they would be freed immediately as long as they showed the sign of the cross. This was a powerful symbol of faith and protection for the soldiers. Inside, a cross, nails, and a crown were brought in, and the kings immediately made reverence to these sacred objects. The captain explained that these were standards from the emperor, meaning wherever they were set up, the Spanish ships would recognize them and refrain from harm. It was a way to establish trust and respect through shared symbols. After Mass, the Captain General organized a fencing tournament, which the kings found very pleasing. This event wasn't just entertainment. It was also a demonstration of skill, strength, and discipline, traits highly valued in their culture. So, as we see, the cross played a central role, not only as a religious symbol, but also as a diplomatic one, fostering respect and understanding among the different groups. The fencing tournament further reinforced their camaraderie and shared values, tying everything back to the overall theme of faith, tradition, and mutual respect in this encounter. Now, what's really interesting here is how the captain made a powerful declaration to the kings. He told them that if they adored the cross each morning, they would be protected from storms, thunder, and lightning. This shows the deep faith and reliance they placed on the cross as a symbol of divine protection. The kings responded with gratitude, saying they would gladly follow this practice, which highlights their acceptance and willingness to embrace this new faith. Then, the captain explained through the interpreter that the crosses they were setting up were not just symbols, but standards given to him by the emperor, his sovereign. These standards represented the authority and the mission of the emperor, and by setting them up, he was essentially bringing the emperor's presence and influence wherever he went. This act of erecting the cross on the mountain is more than just a physical act. It's a powerful statement of faith, authority, and the spreading of Christianity. It connects to the overall theme of how faith and symbols of divine authority played a key role in these missions. It's about establishing a spiritual presence in new lands and demonstrating that divine protection and the emperor's authority go hand in hand. The Captain General asked them about their faith, wondering whether they were Muslims, heathens, or followed some other belief. Their response was quite simple but meaningful. They worshipped by raising their clasped hands to the sky and calling their god Abba. This gesture and the name they used for their deity really pleased the captain, as it showed a form of devotion that was familiar and respectful. The first king, in turn, expressed his deep affection for the captain, which highlights how their understanding and respect for each other's beliefs helped build trust. This moment is important because it shows that despite cultural differences, there was a mutual recognition of faith and devotion, which played a role in fostering peaceful interactions. It's a reminder that understanding and respect for different spiritual practices can create strong bonds, even in unfamiliar territories. The kings advised that the best ports for food supplies were Ceylon, Zubu, and Calagan. Among these, Zubu stood out as the largest and most active in trade, making it a key location for our efforts. Next, I promised that if God granted me the chance to return, I would bring enough men to make the king's enemies submit to us by force. This was my way of assuring the king of my commitment. The king, in turn, revealed that he had 2 hostile islands as enemies, but he also mentioned that it wasn't the right season to go there just yet. Finally, he offered us a military alliance, showing his willingness to cooperate and strengthen our position in this region. These points highlight the strategic importance of the ports, the promise of future military strength, and the potential for alliance, all crucial elements as we navigate these complex relationships and expand our influence. Now, after completing their prayers, each man, including the kings, repeated the Pater Noster and Ave Maria, showing their devotion and unity in faith. They also adored the cross, emphasizing its spiritual significance. Following this, they descended through cultivated fields until they reached the place where the Balanghai, their boat, was moored. Later, after having dinner, everyone changed into their doublets and prepared for the next part of the journey. Together, they climbed the highest mountain alongside both kings, demonstrating their collective commitment and shared purpose. At the summit, the captain expressed his respect, mentioning he esteemed highly having sweated for them. This highlights the effort and sacrifice involved in their mission, especially considering the importance of the cross, which he believed would be of great use in their endeavors. This moment of ascending the mountain together symbolizes unity, faith, and perseverance, core themes that resonate throughout this entire journey. So here we see a fascinating turn of events. The first king, initially eager to proceed, suddenly changes his mind overnight. He tells the captain to wait 2 more days before harvesting his rice, which is quite a significant delay. Interestingly, he also offers to act as the pilot himself, perhaps to show confidence or to take control of the situation. Meanwhile, the kings, in their celebration, ate and drank so much that they ended up sleeping all day. Some even said they were slightly sick from overindulgence. This behavior highlights their carefree attitude and perhaps a lack of urgency or understanding of the bigger picture. Now the captain recognizes that they need guidance to reach Zubu, so he requests pilots, skilled navigators, to help them find the way. He offers to treat these pilots as kings, showing respect and importance, and in exchange, he's willing to leave a hostage, which was a common practice to ensure cooperation. This part of the story emphasizes the theme of patience and negotiation. The delay isn't just about waiting, it's about managing relationships, securing trust, and navigating cultural differences. It shows how leadership and tact are crucial in such complex situations, especially when trying to establish safe passage and alliances. In this slide, we see a fascinating example of early trade negotiations. A native offers a pointed crown made of massive gold in exchange for 6 strings of glass beads. Now, at first glance, that might seem like a good deal for the native, but notice what the captain does. He refuses the exchange. This is a key point. He's deliberately setting a boundary. Then another native comes forward and asks for something more specific, a knife. What's interesting here is that he refuses to accept other valuable items like a ducat or even a dapione, which is worth 2 ducats. He only wants a knife, and he won't settle for anything less. The captain, however, refuses to give the knife initially. Why? Because the captain wants to make a statement. He wants the natives to understand from the very beginning that we value our merchandise, our goods, more than their gold. This is a strategic move. By refusing to barter on their terms, the captain is establishing the value of the items and the importance of respecting the trade boundaries. This story ties into the broader theme of this presentation, understanding the importance of perception in trade. It shows that sometimes the way we handle negotiations can teach others about our values and priorities. Gold over glass, in this case, is not just about the material worth, but about the message it sends. Our merchandise is more valuable than their gold. This practice makes the mouth become exceedingly red, which is quite noticeable. All the people in those parts of the world actually use this custom because it's very cooling to the heart. In fact, if they stopped using it, they believe they would die. Pigafetta observed that they constantly chew a fruit called areca, which looks like a pear. They cut the areca into 4 parts, then wrap it in betray or betel leaves, which resemble mulberry leaves. They also add a little lime, chew everything thoroughly, and then spit it out. This is known as the areca and betel custom, and it's a widespread tradition in those regions. It highlights how deeply rooted these practices are in their culture and daily life, connecting to the broader theme of cultural customs and their significance. The island was located at approximately 9 2/3 degrees north latitude, pointing toward the Arctic Pole, which gives us an idea of its position in the northern hemisphere. It was situated 162 degrees from the line of demarcation, marking its relative location in relation to other territories, and about 25 leagues from the area called Mazawa, also known as Aquata. This proximity to Mazawa is significant because it highlights the island's strategic position and its potential as a resource-rich location. Speaking of resources, the island had a variety of valuable materials. We found wax and a good amount of gold, which suggests the presence of mineral wealth and potential trade opportunities. In addition to precious metals, the island was abundant in other valuables that could be used both locally and for trade. The food and crops available included rice, ginger, coconuts, figs, oranges, and lemons, along with millet, panicum, and sorgo. These are staple grains and fruits that support both the local population and visiting sailors. The island also had a diverse array of animals, dogs, cats, swine, fowls, and goats, providing essential resources like meat, milk, and companionship. All these elements, geography, resources, and biodiversity, highlight the strategic and economic importance of Mazawa within the broader context of our exploration and expansion efforts. After spending 7 days at Mazawa, we set sail northwestward, passing through 5 different islands along the way. An interesting and important detail is that the King of Mazawa himself served as our pilot, joining the fleet to guide us through the waters. The Captain General was quite impressed with the king, especially with how quickly the ships moved under his guidance. From there, we had a final stretch heading westward for about 15 leagues. Our next notable waypoint was Zubu, which was approximately 20 leagues from Mazawa, marking a critical point as we headed further into these new territories. We also navigated northwest, passing through notable places like Ceylon, Bohol, and Canyon, which form part of the island chain. During this journey, we spent 7 days anchored with the local king, establishing important relations and gathering knowledge about these lands. Finally, we departed from Mazawa and continued onward to Zubu, marking the next chapter of our expedition into these uncharted waters. This part of the voyage highlights the strategic navigation and the significance of local alliances, which are key themes in our overall exploration story. On Gadigan, the variety of bird life is truly remarkable. There are doves, turtle doves, parrots, and even large blackbirds with long tails. These birds lay eggs that are as big as goose eggs, and interestingly, they bury them in the sand where the heat naturally helps hatch them. When the chicks are born, they push their way up through the sand to emerge into the world. What's particularly fascinating is that Gadigan also hosts bats as large as eagles, which is quite extraordinary. In fact, we once killed one of these giant bats late in the evening. It resembled a chicken in taste, which might surprise you given its size. These examples really highlight the unique and diverse wildlife of Gadigan, and they connect to our broader theme of exploring extraordinary natural phenomena and the adaptations of different species in their environments. Understanding Philippine history requires a critical approach to primary documents and ongoing scholarly discussions. By analyzing these sources carefully, we can develop a more nuanced and educated appreciation of our past. One of the most important primary sources for understanding the events surrounding the First Mass is Antonio Pigafetta's account of his first voyage around the world. His detailed observations give us valuable insights into the encounters between Europeans and Filipinos during that time. Additionally, the National Historical Institute, after thorough research and review of historical records, has concluded that Limasawa is the most likely site of the First Mass held on March 31, 1521. This decision was based on extensive evidence and scholarly consensus, highlighting how historical interpretation evolves with ongoing research. As for the actual location of the First Mass, Masao in Butuan City and Limasawa in southern Leyte are still the two primary candidates. Both sites have compelling historical claims, and this ongoing debate underscores the importance of continued scholarship. In summary, the key takeaway here is that the debate over the First Mass exemplifies how critical analysis and scholarly discourse contribute to a deeper understanding of Philippine history. It reminds us that history is not static, but a dynamic field of study that evolves as new evidence and interpretations emerge.